When you look at the business models, you were saying that business models are important for banks. They'll adapt, they'll become maybe more technological. But what you need in the immediate future is actually more central bank normalization. What will that do for returns?
Well, first, it is up to them to make the decision. Monetary policy should not be decided by banks, but central bankers who are independent. Now, of course, it has a big impact on us. What we see today is a rather flat monetary policy, flat interest rate curve, and of course it has an impact on the business we do and the profitability of the business we do. We adapt, reducing costs, adapting business model, but it has an impact. So any change, of course, would be positive for us, but once more, it's not up to us to decide.
But in the process of normalization, how much volatility are you expecting in the markets? How difficult will it be to adapt?
Well, we are in a very specific, massive liquidity everywhere in the world, quite high valuations. So this is a difficult environment for normalization. My guess is both in the US and in Europe, and even more in Japan, it will be extremely gradual. They will be very careful not to challenge too many situations and to do it in a very smooth way. Of course, this is the risk because it can be derailed. Derailed not by monetary policy, but by external events. You know, a harsh Brexit in circumstances I cannot guess today, but exceptional circumstances mixed with massive incident on Italy or trade. And then you could have a crystallization of bad views at a time of normalization. I think it is not likely, but this is the way I see the risk in the near future.
What does Brexit and what does the current political turmoil in London and in the UK in the last couple of days mean for BNP Paribas and your commitment to the UK?
Well, Brexit means at least two things. One, for the market, and we are operator in the market, so we need to be careful about the reaction of investors to all this news. I would say this is the business we are used to do in any kind of political tensions. And then, of course, there is the second one, which is the setup. London is a large global market. It's very important for Europe, very important for us. We employ many people in London. We are very active, so we need to adapt. We don't know how to adapt because there are many scenarios. So we have various options. We stand ready. We work, of course, with the ECB and the Bank of England just to be ready to any circumstances and to continue to serve the clients in an efficient way. So this is the only point I can raise today. I simply hope it will go smoothly.
But what would a no-deal Brexit mean for BNP Paribas? How many staff have to move? How much of a contingency plan do you need to put in place? Decisions,
we are ready for these decisions. We have thought about them. But most likely, they will not have to be made immediately. We'll have some time. I'm extremely confident about the fact that even in the case of a hard Brexit, there will be some transition. Otherwise, it would raise operational risks, and I'm sure everybody will try to avoid this. But we stand ready. But adaptation will come if needed.
Okay, so you don't think there's a crashing out? You think that no matter what happens, it's either an adoption of what we saw?
I think all of us, supervisors, banks, asset managers and governments will do their best to avoid any kind of crash. That would be a big mistake, not to do the best to avoid it.
Are you in contact with Number 10? Are you in contact with government officials in the UK?
We have permanent dialogue, especially with supervisors. And I think they are active, they understand the risks. Of course, they have to respect political decisions, and we shall find the right way to do it.
Who do you think will win out of London losing staff to Brexit? Is it Paris or is it Frankfurt?
This is not a race. This is not a race. I'm sure there will be more activity in the Eurozone. The nature of Brexit is such that I hope that the right mix will be found. Probably more activities based in the Eurozone. Paris, why not? Welcome. But Frankfurt is good, and there are many other cities in Europe in which activities could be grown. But also, we need to keep the specificity of the London-based market, which is liquidity, depth, and quality. So I hope that through the negotiations and the processes we put in place, we shall be able to get the two.
What will happen with Italian retail banking, given again the political situation, which is very fluid?
Retail banking will continue in an efficient way in Italy. There is, of course, a cost of funding because the CDS is gone up. Fortunately, it has been stabilized, so it's quite okay today. And I hope that Italian banks will continue to finance the economy in an efficient way. We have a bank in Italy, and we do it. And of course, we finance companies. The economy must be financed, whatever happens.
I mean, what does it mean for lending? Do you see a credit crunch possibly happening in Italy?
No.
I mean, this is...
No. We are not in this type of situation. Maybe I should answer your question in a different way. Over the last 10 years, the Eurozone has gone through some crises, including the Greek crisis. I think a lot has been learned. Institutions are stronger today. And the system, the setup, knows quite well how to address tensions. There is the flexibility to do it. And this is the way I see it for Italy. At the same time, I hope that governments in Europe, including the Italian government, will understand the challenge, will understand that they have no interest at derailing the system. So tensions can be absorbed the way it is today.
We had quite a lot of tensions in markets, in emerging markets. I'm thinking specifically about Turkey. Are we going to see flaring up of tensions in some of these emerging markets linked to Fed normalization, linked to dollar? And again, what does it mean for European banks that have exposure?
I think on principle, there are two different questions. One question is, what about emerging market countries? And today, I would say that there is no specific reason to have a doubt, the normalization, the way we have said, will be very gradual. Now, there are difficulties on some countries because their specific situation. Argentina, Turkey, and a few others. So these countries, of course, must be monitored very carefully, but it doesn't depend on the broad situation. Now, what may happen, and that we need to be careful, that from the situation of these countries, notably asset managers and investors begin to say, hey, it doesn't go well for these countries. Maybe this is a broader question. That's the reason why all the countries have to be careful, manage well, and be very careful about the exposure to debt, not only sovereign debt, but also corporate sector debt. And everybody should be much aware of a potential risk, which is not real today, but may come.
What's business like in France? Is it getting better with some of the reforms being put in place by President Macron?
When I meet clients, that's the best test I have. Not only figures, but clients, the mood of the clients, positive. They invest, they recruit, they build up on reforms which have been decided. They welcome a continuation of reforms, and they welcome initiative taken at the European level, and which is about openness, about competitiveness and strength.
What do they worry about?
Worry about the current situation in Europe. We are going to have European election at the Parliament. We don't know what may happen. While we see what's happening in Italy, while we see the rise of AfD in Germany, I would say welcome to the club. We have known that situation. The French have addressed these type of problems. They will be addressed, but nevertheless, there will be a change. Maybe for the first time, the EU Commission will have some commissaires which may be less skeptical than before. So this is a new paradigm, and we have to adapt to it.
Okay, do you worry about a Europe that will be without Angela Merkel?
The answer is, of course, yes, because she has been, and she is a great leader, and she has given a lot to Europe. She has given a lot to Germany, but she has given a lot to Europe, and she's a friend of France, and I've met her especially on the Greek negotiation, and I know how much she was committed to support Europe. At the same time, Europe doesn't depend only on one leader. There is a future. German will have, I don't know when and how, but a process, and Europe doesn't depend only on one person, but on people.